Okay, so Stranger Things season 3. Where to begin? You've got obviously the guys and Elle doing their crazy shenanigans as usual, and added to that you've got Max from season 2 and Billy, a psychotic asshole who's now even more psychotic. He's possessed by a demon. You've got Joyce and you've got Hopper. Hopper being the sheriff who's there again, who doesn't care. He's got his no devil may care attitude, but at the same time he's got that heart of gold, and that's kind of the pulling story of his themes. And then you've got Joyce and Nancy, their escapades into detective work, into finding out the heart of the real issues going on in Hawkins, and they've got their own kind of storyline which runs parallel to the kids and the adults one. Again, you've got adults, teenagers, and then the kids. Obviously, the main focus of the story, but each one branches in again because you've got a subplot with Russians, you've got a subplot with 11 kind of reaching out, trying to be a kid and trying to break through relationships with Mike, and then you've got Lucas and Max, and they like to balance the kids' stories while make them the sci-fi grandeur stories that we're used to from the Marvel films and the blockbuster films out there, and also the kind of mundane, average kid story, which is what I think the 80s films were the best at. So you've got like obviously the likes of E.T. I mean, even Back to the Future is heavily referenced in this one, and then it with the kids and how they deal with kind of the menacing evils of the world. But anyway, so in season 3 you've got a mind flare, which is a physical manifestation of the evil from the previous 2 seasons, where you've got the shadow that escaped from Will in season 2, now trapped in the outside world after 11 shut the gate to the upside down. Now it's about dealing with that threat that has manifested from those events. Whereas the Demogorgons in season 1 were the major threat of that season, being kind of an omnipotent, omnipresent danger, like they're hid in the kind of the background. And then in season 2, you had the stuff with the lab, and it was a bit more upfront with the whole demo dogs running around, and it was more in-your-face danger. Season 3 has this over-looming darkness kind of, and it builds and builds and builds throughout the season to the point where really it feels like the culmination of the past 3 years, or however long it's been now. And it's 3 years, I think, in the storyline of the show, but it's been God knows how many years in real life. Now here's the thing: it's like I don't know where they'd go after this. They obviously hint and set up things with the Russian involvement, which I think was one of the more outlandish things about season 3, which I'd say was one factor I probably wasn't the biggest fan of. It felt very, very 80s, but at the same time 90s movie. Obviously, that's what they go for. It's just, it felt a bit odd. Don't know if everyone else agreed with me. It probably was a big thing that everyone liked, but I just found that to be the most exaggerated point of the series. Whereas I love the way, obviously, the characters dealt with it, but then, spoilers, when they go into the lab and you see Hopper dressed as a Russian soldier, and same with Joyce and I forget the other guy's name, but all three of them dressed as Russian soldiers, it just seemed odd. I don't. Obviously, the series has always been outside of the realms of reality with the sci-fi nature and Hawkins Lab and everything going on in the shady government agencies. It's just throw in a Russian base underneath a 90s mall or 80s mall, and it just seems quite odd. Anyway, the more story, getting into that, I loved. I thought it was great the way they threw kind of Steve back together with Dustin, having them two back on screen together. Like, it's gold. The moment they meet up and they do the handshaking thing, it's amazing. You love it. Who doesn't love Steve and Dustin? It's, if you don't, you're crazy. And then you've got Robin added to that. LGBT thrown in there as well, which, I mean, it was good. Then it's not in your face. It's not like, oh, SJWs and everything these days. You need to have this. You need to have this. It needs to stand to everyone. Everyone needs to have their vocal point in the show. It's it is there, and it's not a big thing, and that's what I think it should be. If you're going to put in an LGBT character, or whatever the acronym is, into your show, I feel you do need to kind of put it in there, but also not overshadow it. It doesn't need to be an overshadowed thing. Like, it's not in real life. Why would it be in a show? People are who people are. Like, they like what they like. Like, that's me going off on a tangent there, but I think it should be included, but not in your face. It shouldn't have to be in your face. It should be normal, which it is. It's normal at the end of the day. You don't need to bog yourself down and all that. But that character, loved her. She thought Robin, great character. Her and Steve's like kind of interactions. It was very cute with the whole. You've got Dustin and Steve being the best friends, and then it feels like Robin's almost kind of taken Dustin's spot at one point, but obviously she doesn't. And both duos of those are great. And then you got Erica. Can't spell America without Erica, obviously. She was great. The kids always good characters. I find Will a bit annoying, and Mike's always a bit grating. But you know, Lucas, Max, Elle, they're kid actors, and they do what they can with what they've got, and they are really good at it. They do feel like kids. It's not a show where you think, oh, these actors are awful. They're acting like children and they're terrible at it. No, they're really good. They come across as kids, being kids in the 90s. I mean, they swear, they have a go at each other, they'll hug at the end of the day because they're all best friends, and they do feel real. They do feel like real characters. And getting to real characters, you've got again Hopper and Joyce, and it got a little wearisome. I'll be honest, the dynamic between them and bickering because they're a will they won't they couple in this, and they have been since season 1. Obviously it leads to some quite good setups, like the date where he stood up and he has to kind of react to that, and then he gets quite angry when she goes to see surprise cameo from Mr. Clark, the science teacher, or something from season 1 and 2, and it's all good setups for that, but the dynamic gets quite tiresome in this season, I think. And obviously, spoilers, we'll see where that goes in season 4, where that's left off. But I'm not suspicious, but I'm curious as to see where season 4 will go. I mean, you've got this element with the Russians. I don't know whether that's going to build into something more or go wherever that's going to go, but I kind of hope it stays with the central kids. I don't want it to be this kind of grand scale thing. That was the thing I thought was great about Stranger Things season 1, was that it was a small town. It was like Goonies. It was E.T. It was this group of kids dealing with government things that they don't understand and shouldn't be dealing with, and they've got real kind of threats in these things. But at the same time, you're a kid and you're dealing with it in a child kind of perspective, and it's great that way because you've got and then the teenager's own perspective I thought was quite good, because you've got 3 different points of view of how they deal with these things. But from Hopper to Steve to Dustin, you've all got a great perspective, each one, and each one brings kind of a great point of view that kind of blend well to create this overall world. I think the Stranger Things world is great. I love it. I love the vibe it gives, the nostalgia, everything about it. Again, where it would go from season 4, I don't know, and I want to see more, but at the same time I hope they have a good structured plan for where season 4 will go. Obviously they leave quite a few hints with the ending post-credit scene. Stick around for that. I mean, everything has a post-credit scene now. You have to stick around. You have to stay in the cinema. You have to stay at Netflix. You have to watch every credit scene. That's the world we live in now. If there's a credits, there's probably going to be something after it, so just bear that in mind. Always watch the credits. But no, Billy was also great. He played a psychopath. I mean, the Red Power Ranger from the reboot of Power Rangers, he was great. No, Steve's my favourite. I can't help it. I mean, Steve the Hare Harrington, who doesn't love Steve, and then obviously repping Dustin because he's the best. Hopper, classic. He's the archetypal Indiana Jones character meets, I mean, all the characters that didn't give a crap in all the 80s, 90s horror films. Like, he's the actual sheriff that gets off his ass and does stuff. It's great. Yeah. It's got all the character tropes you love and all the character tropes you hate, but they blend them well together and kind of create these characters that you wouldn't see doing something and then throwing them into something that's completely out of their area of comfort, and then watching as they deal with the situations they're dealt with. I mean, from season 1, Steve was the asshole boyfriend who became kind of his own hero in a right, of when he never wins a fight. That's a thing that gets brought up, and then he wins one fight against a Russian guy, and finally he wins a fight, which is great. I love all the characters. Some of it annoying, like Jonathan. I don't really know if he has many lines in this series. Like Nancy's a good character. It's just their kind of investigation felt almost tacked on. It was kind of to build up the other side of the story, that was kind of added on to the kids, and then it's balancing a lot of plates. It does it well, but there are a few plates that are left to spin, and I don't think they kind of spin at the right level. All in all, season 3 is not the best season of Stranger Things, but in that same sense, it's my favourite season. It's well made as always. It's well directed, well written, well acted. Obviously, all the kids are great, even the ones that kind of grate on me a bit. But like, that's kind of their characters, and they do it extremely well. But it's my personal favourite season. I think season 1 is probably the best because of the things it balances, the elements it brings, just the kind of vibe it gives off. I think it's overall the best season if you wrap it in a bun. Season 2, I think I'm with the majority, and I think that's kind of the in the middle that was good, but it wasn't amazing. I mean, there's that one episode where Eleven goes off to San Francisco, and it just kind of stops, and the story literally halts for a whole episode and just pauses, and it gets quite frustrating. Whereas season 3, I don't feel it has that. I feel it runs smoothly across. Some major developments for characters, and it builds a lot of character development for even the likes of Billy. I mean, a character who was a side note in season 2 who was just a bit of a dick. Season 3 sees him kind of grow into a character who you can relate to, and also isn't just psychotic. And that kind of, again, builds into the narrative of season 3. And I think, again, it is my favourite season, but best season, season 1, it's just still great. I mean, I think I binge watched them all in one day. They are that easy to go into the next. It's one of those ones where it does end and you're like, I need to know what happens next. Season 3, recommend it. Stranger Things, still great. Look forward to see where it goes. That ending, emotions were high. Let me just put it that way. But yeah, watch Stranger Things. Season 3 is great. My favourite. Love the 80s vibe. It's Back to the Future meets Goonies meets everything else you loved in the 80s. I wasn't around then, but I can still imagine it being a pretty good time. Except, with the whole no mobile phones and texting and... Yeah, no, Stranger Things, season 3. Go watch it. Bye.